Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome to an edition where we're going to be talking about a forgotten masterwork of the dean of science fiction himself, Robert A. Heinlein. Now, when we talk about masterworks from Robert A. Heinlein, typically there's three books that jump to most people's minds almost immediately. And those three books are Starship Troopers, probably his most popular book. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, his book about a libertarian revolt on the moon, on Luna Base. And then, of course, Stranger in a Strange Land. But I would contend that there's another novel that is at least as good and in many respects far better than those three novels, that is actually one of his masterworks as well, and one that's been particularly forgotten. And that book is Orphans of the Sky, published by Robert A. Heinlein in 1941. This is a Berkeley Medallion edition here from 1971 with a pretty decent cover on it. And I would propose that this book is the equal of any one of those three, and in many respects is far better, even though it's a very slender book coming in at 128 pages. Now, this originally was not published in novel form. Originally, this story was actually published in a monthly science fiction magazine called Astounding Science Fiction, and it was split between two-month publications. So it was a divided up story that he wrote in these publications, Astounding Science Fiction, back in 1941. And I actually have a copy of Astounding Science Fiction right here. This one's from 1947. So you can see what that magazine looked like, this monthly sci-fi magazine. And this had the main title story as Fury by Lawrence O'Donnell, and just a spectacular Art Deco sci-fi cover on it. Just fantastic stuff. And so it was in this magazine that it was published, and the original title of that story wasn't Orphans of the Sky, it was actually called Universe. And the reason it was called Universe is because it was about a multi-generational colonizing ship that was launched from the Earth in the year 2119, named the Vanguard, and it was traveling across the galaxy to a very far destination that was going to take at least 100 years, if not more, in order to reach it, which would result in multiple generations growing up within the ship. Now, while I'm talking about the story going forward, there will be some minor spoilers, but no major spoilers, just to let you know. And nothing that I've told you so far isn't anything that you can't glean off of the back blurb of the book. And speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and read to you the back blurb of the book. The universe was 5 miles long and 2,000 feet across. Men scoffed at the legends of such things as stars, or the demented idea that the ship was moving. For the ship was the universe, and there could be nothing outside. Then one man found his way to a forgotten room and saw the stars, and they moved. Orphans of the Sky, exciting in its plot and action and stimulating in its speculation, is a science fiction landmark. And I wholeheartedly agree. This is a science fiction landmark. This is a very small book that is packed with a bunch of great, brilliant science fiction ideas. You've got these big science fiction ideas packed into this small little package, and it's fantastic. It is a great book. And some of those ideas that get packed into this book are, again, the idea of a multi-generational spaceship all the way back in 1941. Now, Robert A. Heinlein wasn't the first author to come up with the idea of a multi-generational spaceship, but he's the one who wrote it out in the most depth, with the most thought, and outlined it so completely and made it brought to life, and really thought about how it would work it was going through space. And so I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. He adds in there centrifugal force, the rotating of the spaceship in order to provide artificial gravity that gets stronger as you get out to the outer edges up to 1 Earth gravity. And then as you go towards the core of the ship, it goes down to weightlessness. And that is another idea that he throws into here. The other big idea that he has is this idea of societal collapse. And I won't give away why the society collapse, but you have the societal collapse that's implied in the back of the book here, in the back blurb, where the society collapses and they forget who they are. They forget that there is an outside. They forget that they're on a ship. To them, the entire universe is the ship, and there's nothing that exists outside of the ship. And it's just a fantastic idea that he works into this book as they're traveling through space in this multi-generational ship. And he also has radioactive mutants. And these are human beings that have been radioactively mutated. They're within the ship, that you have this conflict then going between the descendants of the crew and the descendants of the crew who are now mutated peoples. And this is 1941. You've got to remember, this is before the dropping of the atomic bombs. And Heinlein is writing about these radioactive mutations inside of this spaceship that's hurtling through space towards its destination hundreds of years away, with this societal collapse that's going on inside of it at the same time. And it's all in this 128-page novel. And because it's such a small novel, the character development in it, I won't call it flat. It's not flat characters. You have very distinct characters with distinct personalities, but there's not a lot of character development that's thrown into it. The emphasis isn't on the characters. The emphasis is on the science fiction ideas, and putting just all those big, brilliant ideas into this little package and getting them in there as succinctly and as economically as possible, with as much impact as possible, and it works brilliantly. This really is just an absolutely brilliant book. I do highly recommend it. Another aspect of this book, it is a bit allegorical towards the Bible, in that there are definite parallels between the fall from grace, the expulsion from Eden in this book. There's a lot of Milton contained within here by Robert A. Heinlein. At least that's my contention. So why doesn't this book get more attention and popularity than it does? As much attention as the big three that I named earlier. And I think one of the reasons that is because there is an aspect of this book that rears its ugly head starting on page 101 that has put a lot of people off from it, and it has stopped people from promoting it as much as it deserves to be promoted. And that is that starting on page 101, you really get this aspect of the writing that comes out where there's a certain violence towards women that gets written into the book. And I have a theory on this, and I'll go over it, but I wanted to show you guys some examples of what that is. So on page 101, and I'll back up a little bit here. The book has all male characters in it, all the way up to page 101. There actually are no female characters. The women in the book are referred to strictly as the women. That's only how they're referred to, and that's only how they are able to interact and be part of the book, as just referring to them as the women. So that's problem number one. And then you have on page 101, this is talking about the main character Hugh as he's selecting his wives. Yes, you heard me correctly. Wives is in the plural because there's polygamy that's put into this book. So Hugh's selecting his wives. The other was a maiden, untrained and wild as a mutie. Hugh could not have told himself why he picked her. Certainly she had no virtues, but she made him feel funny. She had bitten him while he was inspecting her, and he had slapped her, naturally. And that should have been an end to the matter, but he sent word back later to her father to send her along. And he had not got around to naming her. So when you pick a wife, whatever name she had prior, as the husband, you can erase that name, and then you get to rename your wife after you have married her, your wives after you have married them. So that's the first indication that you've got a problem. And then you have more instances of potential violence against women from starting there at page 101 until it ends on page 128. And there's another incident that really sticks out in my head. They're flying the spaceship and some things have gone wrong. And the women, again, have gotten together and they are all kind of chattering and talking about what is happening. And they have been worked themselves up into a little bit of panic. And the main character, Hugh, turns to them and tells them to quote unquote, shut up and go back into their quarters. And the thing is that I don't think this is Heinlein just being an ASS. I think this is actually Heinlein putting forth a theory where societal collapse, where you lose your libertarian values and you go into this theocratic oligarchy that he has set up on the ship, where you have basically political changes of the political leadership through assassination. You have this theocratic oligarchy that has instituted slavery amongst the survivors of this generational ship, that this is part of that decay of society. And the reason I say that is because in all the other Robert A. Heinlein novels, at least the ones that I have read, which is quite a few, the main character is almost typically male, but there are always strong supporting female characters in all those other novels who typically have quite a bit of agency in those novels, particularly in the book Half Spacesuit Will Travel. The teenage female supporting supporting character in that book has almost more agency than the main character and have space at will travel. And typically in a Robert A. Heinlein novel, if you're a person in that book who has committed an act of violence against a woman, you're going to wind up very dead very fast. And for those reasons, and so consistent the way he is and the way he portrays women in his other novels as versus this novel here, I think this is actually Robert A. Heinlein showing what happens when you lose your libertarian values and your society collapses. You're going to degenerate in how you run your politics. You're going to degenerate into the freedoms that are allowed to your people. And that rolls over into violence for women and control over women. And I think that's him showing that collapse and what the results of that collapse here in Orphans of the Sky. At least that's my take on it. If you guys have different opinions on that, please put them down in the comments section. I would love to hear it. So that is Orphans of the Sky. It is a brilliant book. It is a great book. It is a very fast little read. I do recommend it. If you have read Orphans of the Sky, please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section. I would love to hear it. I do read all the comments and try to answer all the comments. But with that, again, it is late. Once again, I'm forced into shooting these late videos. But I'm going to wrap this one up and say take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.